Welcome to Don's vlog. Today I am excited to be able to do my first live interview. I would like to introduce you, actually I'd like our guest to introduce himself. Sir?
Thank you. Hello, my name is Redd McTokinbong. I am an artist locally, electronics engineer by hobby, and all around enthusiastic about life itself. And as I understand, you have some questions.
Yes, I've spoken to you a lot on Facebook. And on Facebook you've acknowledged your existence as a God. And I had some questions regarding that. My first question to you, as a self-acknowledged God living among us, how is our current level of society please or displease you?
All right. Well, that's kind of a two-sided question, which is actually perfect for this expression, because we currently live in an idealistic society that is logic-based, as in one way or the other. And that is incredibly displeasing at the same time.
Thank you.
At the same time, it is incredibly fundamental to identify with one side or the other, to get certain information from one side and pass it along to the other.
I don't know if you were aware, but we actually had a human psychiatrist or psychologist that developed what he called a paper on human behavior. And he talked about different levels that had to be attained as we go up a hierarchy of needs. And at the very top of that is self-actualization. And the idea of that is once you reach that level, you can define the universe as you understand it. You can define morality as you understand it. You don't have to put yourself above or whatever, anyone else, because your worth is based internally. And you have the guts that if society needs to go in a different direction, you feel free to lead. And in this kind of deal, you rise above being a sheep to being a person that can rationally examine the information and come up with a consensus or his own view.
Okay. In fact, I would like to comment on what you had just said about sheep. And it's more like, well, through psychology, most people analyze the animal kingdom as a sort of basis to bias their decision-making skills to a relative degree. These are the people we can refer to as the sheep.
Yes.
Okay? But let's pull back a little bit and say through the course of evolution, which granted a lot of it's being debunked these days, a lot of people are having different belief systems about different things. That's all well and fine and everything like that. But what my understanding of evolution is like a stepping stone process. It's an understanding that yes, this is one of the possibilities of how all of these changes can occur simultaneously in a sequence. And as above, so below. So as you, as in the individual, gain a better understanding of all of the fundamental sciences that we exist within and around, surrounding ourselves and everything else, evolution becomes so much more apparent.
Yes.
As in your parents evolved before you did, to the extent that they were able to provide you with certain knowledge.
So like the hierarchy of needs or pyramid, we're building upward to not only the individual, but the society and the world altogether can reach the tip where we become self-actualized.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, in fact, and it doesn't even stop there. A lot of people's fears or worries about, oh, well, once we reach a certain point, everyone's going to become lazy, and then in the entire societological bullcrap will just collapse, and then we'll end up into the dark ages again. And it's like, no, you just have to be smarter than that. Not really smarter in a sense. You just have to. Okay.
I understand what you're saying, because I'm not fully self-actualized yet, but I'm on the road to it. And one of the things I'm finding out is I am busy. I am so busy. I don't have time to worry about anything more being atrophied from my body due to inactivity, because I always have something to do. I have someone to talk to. I have something to write. I have pictures to take. And before, when I was under the black cloud of depression,
the spell,
I was sitting in this chair just waiting to die, and my muscles have atrophied, and I have to rebuild them back to what they were. But it's so exciting now as I'm on that trail, that's no longer a problem, that's no longer an issue, and that's no longer a fear.
That's good.
I know this is off the track. I know we have time issues and such, but something you said earlier, there is those among us that want to deny the fact that we are animals. We are part of the animal kingdom. Yes, we have wonderful powers of intellect. We have very dexterous hands and such. But there are those that want to put us down, that all other animals deserve to exist more than humanity. I was wondering how you felt about that.
It is a process through which we can look towards evolution as being, if you believe in past lives, future lives, presents, we have all essentially ascended from the animal kingdom to become human. And if it could help or would help, the human being, the human body, the person in this physical form is comprised of absolutely all of the absolute best parts of every single universe in existence.
That is great to hear. I'm encouraged. I'm looking forward to the time when we can accept, acknowledge, and even learn more as we continue to grow. I'd like to ask you my second question. Do you feel any way responsible when people blame the gods for their misfortune?
Well, that is a two-sided answer. It is both yes and no. The long-term side effects, no. The short-term side effects, yes, to an extent. It's as for a couple 100,000 years, things had to have been in a very chaotic state.
Yes.
That seems like no longer the case, aside from right here on Earth. It's like that everyone is coming to terms with a lot more, about a lot more, and that is the process of philosophical evolution. Eventually everyone will learn all of the information that everyone else already knows, and be more in tune with themselves in that way.
That kind of brings up something that's really disturbing me at this time. It seems to be a worldwide trend that everybody is looking for, this is the one answer, this is the bad thing that you do not want. This is a miracle food. If you eat this food, you will lose weight, all your health return, and everything else, but it's just one food item. And yet this food over here, this is a bad food. You should never eat it, even though it has vitamins, minerals, and other things you need. And unfortunately, we seem to be turning that to how we handle all the issues in the world, where we're simplifying things and oversimplifying things. So we're trying to find a very simple answer for a very complex problem. And when we find somebody who says, I have the answer, I have the simple solution, again, we look like sheep, as many people just flock along, or whatever.
Go with the flow.
They go with the flow, and they look to that person. That person becomes their new shaman, their new guru, and whatever comes from the mouth of that person, they take as fact, as law, and as a way to go.
Okay. Was there a question involved?
No, actually, that was just a statement, wasn't it?
Oh, that was a statement, but it sounded like you were leading towards a question.
How do we wake the sheep up before, instead of being sheep, they act more like lemmings and they head for that cliff, and if we can't stop them in time, they're going to go over that cliff, down into the sea, and they're all going to drown. That might be a good thing for the world, but there are some of those lemmings that are friends, that are family, and honestly, I don't want them to see them going over that cliff and ending up drowning in the sea below. Right. So is there a way to stop the flock or the group of lemmings before they reach that edge of the cliff?
Intervention.
By you, the gods?
By you, the individual.
Unfortunately, right now, people are so worked up that the rationality isn't there. And people are attacking other people. People are attacking brothers, sisters, friends, neighbors, because their views do not quite match. And instead of being able to work things out amicably, logically, fundamentally, they're attacking. I know there's some of the talk show hosts where if they can't make a point logically, they will do something the equivalent of giving you a wedgie or pulling your pants down on the radio to try and prove that they have a superior point of view, or what they're doing is they're pulling a schoolyard prank that the bullies used to do.
Oh yes, and it actually seems like a lot with media has a lot to do with the discourse of people's idealisms. I'll give you somewhat of an example. Because of all of the identifications I've done and writing and acknowledgments, certain things in the world happen that reflect another closer knit set of people. For instance, the other week I had to protect someone from her husband of 20 years. He had a psychotic break, which could be attributed to a chemical imbalance due to disease.
I've been there. It's very scary.
And it was, from psychology point of view, he was acting from the reptile mind. The medulla oblongata, most baser sensory inputs, and feed, hunger, anger. We're evolving past that. We're evolving past that as a species. He, as an older person, could not adapt to the change as appropriately as everyone else is struggling to push through. Think of it as the reason everyone is feeling so much pressure and having so much stress and having so much tension is because the world as a collective is about to push through into the new universe.
So we're almost there. If we can just hang together.
Yeah, well, it's don't lose yourself.
Okay.
Don't lose track of yourself. Not really don't lose track of yourself, because sometimes it's okay to just wander off and forget about everything and don't care about the world, don't care about the problems. I just want some peace of mind once.
I'm sorry, we have to break for just a moment for commercial.
That's fine.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like you to support our current sponsor, Popeye's Diner, where every hamburger is served with spinach and delivered to your table by a smiling olive oil. And my next question for Redd is, as a God, how do you answer to those that say there are no gods?
Well, if it was to say there are no gods, yes, that is true. There are no multiple gods. There is no one God either.
So we come close to the idea that once we reach actualization and we open that door, we meet the great we are.
Yes. If I may give a little insight as to a lot of people on this planet have a fear of death. A lot more people don't. In fact, they present the opportunity to die. More so than the people who are afraid to die. And when you actually reach that gateway to be able to pass on from this shell into your new body, beyond that door is a person that looks exactly like you, and they will ask you the question, are you sure? And most people say no. So they come back, continue living, go about their day as if they didn't die, not knowing that they actually did.
Isn't there also something we need to keep in mind? Shakespeare stated it in one of his plays. He had the grave diggers out at the cemetery, and one of them was saying to the other that the day he was born, he began the process, and eventually the main character would reach the point where he died. And it's a natural function, it's a necessary function. And like you say, there's people that are totally afraid of it. And there's other people that they realize there's something else. And they also realize that there comes a time when it's time to go. Pardon me for...
Yeah, it's okay. It's all a part of what you choose to accept as a person, as an individual, with your own belief systems, definition systems, structural support systems, and basic understanding that you literally know nothing as a person on this planet. It's not that you know literal nothing, it's that you literally know nothing. The being, the entity of nothingness is all you can understand. And so everything else is on the other side. However, there are certain people who have the ability to go from one side to the other at will.
And are you one of these people, or are you above that?
I am an assistance in the transition for the understanding of the people on this planet at this time. It is what my people refer to as a medium, middleman, that center point, if you will, not really the God of creation, of all of everything. In fact, it's more like I am the God of my people, with which one day I will ascend to and be home once again. And then I see a lot of people in the world, they don't know that they are home. All the time, always, in their own center point. They don't understand that what they do affects people in certain ways, in certain categories, with certain understanding. And then you've also got this two-sided narcissism with it. Is that, yes, I know I exist, but how do I know you exist? Well, that's all part of the process. Me personally, I know and understand that you are a conscious living entity separate from myself. I see a lot of people's struggle with the identification that we are made out of the same fundamental materials and geometries, slightly different. And it's like the process of evolution through DNA and the awareness of the mind.
One of the things I've noticed in my life, that I have a tendency that when you're not with me, I freeze you in time and space. And the next time that I come to see you, then I unfree you and expect things to go on. And yet I keep finding myself shocked to realize this 14-year-old young lad now is 34 years old and has his own 14-year-old lad. And it's a very disconcerting thing. I went to a funeral and I saw all my relatives and I looked at them carefully and I said, when did we all become our parents? Because we all now have white hair or dyed hair or whatever, and we all look like our parents did 30 years ago.
Yeah. Well, that's fundamental genetics in a sense. In fact, I forget exactly what I should have written it down, but well, yes, you share the same DNA. Oh, that was it. 1 year for one person can be or seem like more than that or less than that, such as 1 year for you might seem like 1 day to me. And that's because we operate on different time cycles. And so I can go visit a certain person, visit someone else, and understand that they are the same person from 2 completely different time streams.
Oh.
They share the same soul. In fact, we all share the same soul, technically. That's where this the connection and disconnection of separation comes from. And that's why it hurts to live on planet Earth, at least currently. The pain will go away, and all of the slaves will be freed.
And when you're saying slaves, you're referring to people that they're not an actual slavery to a master, but they're more in slavery to an idea, to a concept, to some outmoded idea that is keeping them down and keep them under and not allowing them to grow out of it.
Yeah, somewhat. I'll give you an example. I am restrained personally, but I have the ability to free myself at will. And I choose to. Part of the evolution of understanding is that every person has to go through each other individual person's perspective to understand where they come from as that being. I've been enslaved, held captive, more or less against my will. I had the ability to literally just walk away, but I was at such a place that it's like, okay, I could walk 14 miles in one direction and never find civilization. But as it turns out, I could have just turned around and walked 2 miles the other direction and found a city where I could have found someone who could help me get back home. But it was part of the process of learning how to adapt to something that is just so unpleasant and so heartbreaking and hurtful and painful, that kind of, it was, and so I'm not saying I know the exact struggles of the people that built this country, but I understand what the people that built this country put the people who did the work through. So it's like, and then it's all part of, and when we say evolution, it's part of the same fractaling pattern expanded outwards. Okay? So, and right now we're actually at this point where everything else is collapsing inwards because of all of the fallacies and lies about bullshit in, well, we could say politics. We could say politics. It doesn't really explain absolutely every side of every story, but the political separation, as it were, how you have the one side on the other, and it's, to me, it's more like politics is who can lie better than the other, and how much of that is believed by the masses. And a lot more of that is being debunked these days, because you hear this politician say something, oh, we're going to change this or that about this or that because of this and that. And they're like, that's bullshit. I can see you lying through your teeth right now, and you're getting away with it. How? And that's why you see people mad and struggling, and financially and everything else, and that they don't know that they don't have to put up with that bullshit. If absolutely everyone in America quit their job at the exact same time, the political government would have no choice but to submit to the demands of the people, because they are no longer making money off of the working class. You know, and then people will be able to free themselves.
I find myself personally excited about the current situation because I'm awake now. And I want to utilize the tools, the limitations, and the balances built into the Constitution of the United States that makes the country not only for the people, by the people, but also accountable to the people, without using any form of violence, strictly by going by law, to put ourselves back in balance and move on again towards the next level.
Yeah.
Next question was, are you truly a God, or do you come from a place or time where your knowledge and abilities appear godlike to us? And you did refer to your people. Would you like to expand upon that?
Okay. I can start with the name of my people. They are known as the Foquad. Yeah. Four, quad. 4 of 4 does not necessarily mean 8. It actually refers to more as 16. But it still comes back to 4. And it is spelled P-H-A-Q-U-A-D. But not Q-U, it's actually Q-U. We have our own spelling system, letters, definitions, and language, which is part of the translation process. I'm essentially translating our words into English for better adaptation to identifiable struggle. In essence, I am the God of my people, building my world right here, right now, for them. Everyone else is, in essence, doing the same thing for their people in their own separate worlds, in their own definition systems and their structures, but it all forms, it essentially has the same pattern to it.
My final question for you is, why?
Why?
Why the universe? Why do we exist? Why do you exist? And most important of all, why don't we always run out of dip before we run out of chips?
Well, the dip situation is a little bit different. But why the universe? I'll give you a very simple secret hint. It was an accident. Yeah, believe it or not, folks, the universe was an accident, but now that you're here, congratulations, you survived.
Hopefully not another leaky condom.
That is a good one, too. But it was more like, it was an experiment, and it turned out to be successful, accidentally. Just like
That's good to hear.
most great discoveries have been accidents. You know? Think of it as, what was it? The cure for cancer was accidentally discovered. They then mass produced it. People then gained immunity to it, or the cancer cells gained an immunity to it and evolved from there on their own. It was actually a terrible friction, but at the same time it gave a different set of entities a different way to express themselves. The experiment was not really, it wasn't really to create a person, a being, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually an experiment to build a tool. And as it turns out, it gained sentience and took over like a virus. We then adapted to the virus because we have the same evolutionary traits. We identified this. We saw an ample moment in the evolutionary history and decided to intervene and change it slightly, just a little bit, because when you take a drastic change, there is an incredible amount of shockwave force. This could be incited as the Big Bang. Okay? It was an accident. Boom! Here's a new universe. It took its course and its time to evolve in its way, and here we are again. Full circle. We have the ability to create and change and acknowledge and move forward and evolve, but it's almost like we're still being spread out of the wormhole as it's collapsing in on itself. So you've got this push pull that's it's causing the friction. It's causing the hurt. It's causing the pain. But it's more like everyone has to adapt to their own frequencies, as in the hertz frequency, which is why it hurts, is because everything is at a frequency that is causing friction against one another. And people just need to take a smaller scoop, and the dip will last longer.
What you just said reminds me of a series of books written by James Blish called Cities in Flight, where the cities of the world, in search of new markets, new resources, actually took the entire city up into space and traveled throughout the galaxy looking for new markets and new resources. And the very last story of the series, they discovered that the universe was ending. And so what they did is many of them gathered together and purposely went to where the event horizon was, where the new Big Bang was about ready to occur, and they were putting themselves into that so that when the bang occurred, it would be influenced by the patterns of their existence. So as the new universe was created, it wouldn't take so long for it to evolve because these people had already put those patterns out there to make it easier for the next universe to grow up and reach the levels of self-actuation, cross through the doors and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, that's exactly what's going on right now.
Perhaps he was a little bit through that door.
Oh, yes. Well, everyone, actually, since you bring it up, I have, and you have actually seen this drawing on Facebook, but I figure we can show it to the audience as well as this one.
Okay.
Remember that?
We
can get it scanned. Well,
we will blow that up, and it will be added to the end of the movie.
Yeah. So, if I could give a little
Sure.
background history on this, is we have the universe, we have the expanded universe.
Mm-hmm.
They follow the same pattern, the same shape. The edge would be the door, the gateway. The verge would be where all realization is acquired.
Okay.
And that would be where how the verge and the edge is the same on this small universe as it is on the expanded universe.
Okay.
And then we have the universe with the expansion around it that which is essentially just 2 times the size of Vesica Pisces surrounding the smaller size. And that point right there would be the event horizon. And so and everyone's doing it constantly. They don't realize they're doing it, but that's okay because the amount or the rate at which they do it is just fine for the evolution of the collective. And so we also, and then you have the visual audio acknowledgement into the universe and where it looks like an eyeball. In fact, because our eyeballs were made out of these same fundamental geometries as everything else. And, it's, okay, there's the friction point and the transition point. And it's just a difficult struggle for most people to adapt to because they haven't actually sat down and done the work themselves. But I've actually mapped out quite a lot of universal traits and characteristics that have literally nothing to do with anything other than geometry.
Well, thank you very much. It's been very insightful and very helpful. Would you like at this time to talk about your trading table at conventions?
Oh, yes. I work with an omniversal space monkey named Kenzie, who lives on the Starship Kuroshi at Enterprise. And that's where the gift of presence is essentially acquired or located. I personally come from the land of fair enough, and that's exactly as it sounds. Fair enough. It's neither good nor bad. It's just fair enough.
Kind of like the Texas statement, get her done.
Get her done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess. I can see how that somewhat fundamentally equates to a fair enoughian verb. And so through my experiences and adaptation to realization and actualization, I stepped onto the ship and experienced what it was like to be a part of that monkey crew and was given the opportunity to experience what it is like to be the most densely compact, ignorant, stupid being in the entire galaxy. I asked,
I thought I held that title.
I know, exactly. We all hold that title. We're all humans at this point, currently, somewhat, physically, fundamentally. And we travel from galaxy to galaxy collecting information. And that's how we collected this whole compact list of information that is being telepathically projected through every stream of consciousness. So essentially that information or physicality of information will eventually reach every person in their own timeline, in their own way, at the pace that is comfortable with them. However, while in meat space, we attend various social functions known as conventions. I'm sure some of you out there have gone to a convention, anime, sci-fi, otherwise. We set up a trade table where you can come in with an item, object, a piece of material, and trade it out for another piece of objectively compliant materialism, and it not be required that you pay money for it. You've already earned it, being that you've shown up and brought it here, and that is the gift of presence. You're here right now at every moment of time, space, Feldrum, and whatnot. That I'm very excited for human beings at this point in history. Let's just say I am very proud of their resilience to all form of disease and the ability to build and create and do and influence the entire universe.
One of the reasons you might have noticed this resilience to disease in the science fiction realm is many years ago, 3 of our authors, fans, and friends of science fiction were quite ill. And they actually made us take a pledge at contraception. And we had to swear that we would not get ill.
Yeah.
So maybe that's part of it. I would hope so. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I thank my guest, Redd. This is the first of hopefully many interviews. I thought I'd add an afterword to my interview with Redd. You might ask, why do we even touch upon religion when we're talking about science fiction? Well, religion has been very important in the field of science fiction. Some of our most beloved books in sci-fi are based on religion. For example, if I get it in the right place, perhaps you've heard of Dune. If you haven't read the book, or you haven't seen the movie, or you haven't seen the series, basically Dune, the Dune Messiah, and the Children of Dune deal with the truly unfortunate events that occurred because a prophet that could see into the future misunderstood that this was a possibility of what it could be, and he thought he was supposed to bring it about. And he did, and there was a great cost of lives for the entire universe. And it took great sacrifice of his children to put things right again. So, again, Dune from Frank Herbert. Here's another book that is really important for religion. Yes. Robert Jordan's series, The Wheel of Time. One of the most exciting things that I got out of the series, I've been looking for the quote everywhere and I can't find it. So it could be that I paraphrase the quote inside my mind. But basically the quote I'm looking for, or the quote I got from it that I love so much, was that prophecy is what prophecy is, not what you want it to be. And I love that. One of my favorite books dealing with religion. There we go. Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert A. Heinlein. Some people say he wrote this book as a joke, trying to show that they would publish any crap. Some say the book was written as a dig towards his former roommate, L. Ron Hubbard, who's known for Dianetics. Whatever the reason why that he wrote the book, there are little facets here and little facets there that many of us found to be enlightening. Some of us found to be a guide when we dealt with situations that were beyond what we had been taught. And after all, it was quoted during Charles Manson's trial. One of my favorite authors that a lot of people seem to know about, Selena Rosen. Yay. This is her host season, or excuse me, this is her host series. And religion plays a very important part. And it makes you think, because you learn that just because the movies say that this will work or that will work, then unless you have faith, they don't work. And that just because everybody thinks they know what needs to be used to dispatch evil, sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes they're very wrong. I also enjoy her book. It's Not Rocket Science, Spirituality for the Working Class Soul. If you're in a depressed state and you need a kick in the ass, read the damn book. So, we've talked about science fiction and religion. Sometimes science fiction is very critical of religion. Sometimes it's very respectful. Sometimes it's just asking you, what if, to make you think. So, before you start sending us a lot of hate mail, because you don't understand what either Reddit had to say or I had to say, be aware that there are many, many paths. And the path that Redd's on is slightly different than the path that I'm on. And probably you're on a slightly different path. So before you start sending hate mail, realize that in no way have we tried to change you over to our way of thinking. All we've done is shared our views. Part of striving to become a self-actuated person is that we're not dependent on your approval. We're not dependent on your arguments. We are able pardon me, we're able to make those decisions ourselves, and we're able to believe in our beliefs without a need to debate, without a need to be lectured to. And we hope you don't feel that we have tried to lecture to you. Basically, we've done this as sharing. Probably next time, Redd will actually be interviewing me, and I will talk more about my beliefs that differ widely from the main paths of religion. So basically, that's all I want to say. There is another video that is also going to be posted. I believe it's labeled Forget What You Know. I'll try and put a link on this later. Hopefully I can post that one first. But it is Redd explaining his experiences and views on dealing with an expanded universe. And he goes into a lot of depth on it, and he did a lot of work on it. So please take a look at that video as well. Basically, that's all I've got to say. Thank you for watching the vlog. If you're an artist, if you're an author, if you're a cosplayer, or if you're a science fiction fan and you would like to be interviewed, please leave me a comment. I'll feed you something to eat, and then I'll wear you out, because when we do an interview, we do an interview. That's all I've got to say for now, and as usual, vaya con Dios, ciao, and see you later, sucker.